Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland, where my weekly show take a deep dive into a particular film. And this week we have Adam joining me to talk a little Scorsese. So, welcome, Adam.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And I always like to give my guests an opportunity to shamelessly plug whatever they would like to shamelessly plug. So, plug away.
Uh, yeah. Look, there's not much for me to plug. I don't spend too much time on Twitter or anything, but I'm at Curbwriter. Letterboxd is probably the best place to catch my little snippets of reviews. It's at Kerbrider, Curbwriter.
There we go. And Letterbox is definitely becoming the place for all us cinephiles to just dump all of our thoughts. And I know I don't really put a whole lot of actual thoughts or reviews on there. Generally,
I've noticed.
Yeah, basically
you just write and walk away.
Yeah, basically because the thing is, it's like when I first made it, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go through all my favorite movies and put all this through there, and then I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna use this to keep track of all the new movies that I watch. So that's basically all I do. And then you could always watch the YouTube videos if you want to hear my thoughts.
Yeah, fair point.
Shameless plugs. I did make a couple other lists on it recently, and I started using the watch list function. So I do have my watch list on there now, which is up to 110 movies. And I haven't watched a watch list movie in weeks. Just had too many screeners, which not going to complain about that.
So, I was going to say, how do you get into that game? How do you get? I guess you got to write for a few different places, right?
It's interesting because how I started, I could thank Austin. Thank you, Austin, who was just on the channel this week, because he gave me my first press contact, and it all started from there. And because basically every week I have a system, so I look at next week's films coming out. I look them up on IMDb, look up the distributor in the US, and then if they have a place on their website that they could contact them. Like Bleecker Street's really good. They're easy to get in contact with. They were one of the first ones that I got quick contact with. And then I can't even remember. I think it was Austin who got me on Falco Inc.'s email list, but I get a lot of screeners from them, a lot. And then I became friends with somebody on Twitter who happens to work at a PR firm called October Coast, and they do a bunch of stuff in Australia, which is how I started writing for Scare Magazine and moviehole.net, which it's funny because I've interviewed people for Scare Magazine and they're like, "You're from Australia?" I'm like, "Nope. Some Jersey kid that happened to find their way onto this website."
Fantastic.
So, and then it all rolled from there. And honestly, I haven't been able to do a whole lot of writing recently. I'm still working on the same article that I was trying to write for Scribe Magazine on Mean Streets for the past 2 weeks. I'm on my final paragraph. Work's been crazy the past 2 months. We're all back in person again at the university that I work at, and it's just been a big adjustment for things because basically we were basically running at half speed last year with everybody being home and on Zoom, and now we're all back on campus, and it's just like, holy shit.
It's a big adjustment to make.
Yeah,
it's a big adjustment.
But yeah, things are settling down again. So, and I took off today. So I think I watched 8 screeners today.
What? You definitely have Hermione's time shifter. You have that hourglass. The amount of stuff. I don't know how you managed to walk.
I'm going to walk away now. I've been caught.
It's phenomenal, man.
You know my secret.
I'm green with envy is what I am, to be honest.
Honestly, it's just I'm the kind of person, I joke that I'm a working dog. I have to be busy. And so I don't relax a whole lot. I can't just sit there and do nothing, and I don't take naps. Like, it's
No,
funny.
I can't nap either.
I work with so many 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds at a college, and like I ask them any fun plans this weekend. They're like, sleep. And I'm like, sleep it all all the stuff that you do, just sleep it all away. But anyway, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about some movies. So basically how our show works is we have coming attractions and we talk about our feature. And this week, the domestic drama from Martin Scorsese, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which I was very interested to see because I'm like, this doesn't look like a crime thriller or anything of the sorts. And then I watched, I'm like, oh, there's Scorsese here. And then we got some recommendations for everybody. But we'll start off with coming attractions for October 15th, which, Adam, what's the movie you're most looking forward to?
The Last Duel, for several reasons. One would be that I'm actually writing a review for it for SiftPop. And
you all should check it out.
Yeah, check it out. And check it out on Letterboxd when it happens. I'll link you to SiftPop when I do it. Look, honestly, the pedigree that's involved in The Last Duel, Ridley Scott directing, who is a very prolific director, as we know. But we have, well, just looking at it now on IMDb, I didn't realize Affleck and Damon actually wrote or co-wrote, along with someone I'd never heard of, to be honest. But it's good to see, Adam Driver's quickly becoming my boy. Him, Matt Damon, and Ben Affleck, Jodie Comer as well, who's phenomenal in whatever she does. So you can't pass up that type of, that type of behind the scenes crew. It's kind of a must see for me, for sure.
It's and it seems like it's getting some really strong reviews, which I'm excited about. And
that is good.
Like, Ridley Scott has the potential to make really amazing films. Yes. And I know some of them might not turn out the greatest, but with The Martian and like I've enjoyed some of his more recent stuff, like even All the Money in the World. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I like that.
As a
film. That was good.
And he has a big year to wrap up this year with this and House of Gucci, which I am so curious to sit and watch that movie and listen to all those Italian accents go.
You talking about prolific, and then you think about Adam Driver, and this is what he's at least his third movie. So he had a net. He's got now The Last Duel. He's got House of Gucci. That guy, him and Timothée Chalamet are the hardest working people in Hollywood at the moment. Right, they're in everything. And I'm looking at Ridley Scott's credits right now, and it's so much red on there about announced and completed and pre-production and filming.
Yeah.
It's bonkers. The guy's,
and he's not like not a young guy.
No, he's not a young man. Well,
going out there winning best comedy at the Golden Globes in the last 10 years. That still gets me every time.
Yeah, that was hilarious, The Martian.
That speech was hilarious because it's just like coming in there just being like, yeah, apparently I won best comedy.
What a scam. The Golden Globes are a joke.
Just because a movie has a sense of humor doesn't mean it's a comedy.
Just honestly have more than 5 nominations, then you can do the right thing. Anyway.
But yeah, Last Duel, and I'm also really curious to watch Ben Affleck with that bleach blonde hair and
a little goatee,
little bowl cut too, and then Matt Damon and his scarred face, goatee, and mullet combo. Yep.
Look, I don't know a lot about the story behind it, and I don't want to know. I just want to see it.
Yeah, I haven't looked up anything about it. All I know is I'm going to be there for all 2 hours and 35 minutes that we're going to have, and there's some great actors in it. And basically, at this point, if Adam Driver's in it, it's going to be extremely entertaining to watch him act.
Yeah.
Like Annette was just watching him go was
Annette is life-changing because I didn't know you could make movies like that.
Apparently you can basically make anything work. There you go.
Yeah, and he's fantastic in that. He's
Yeah.
got to have an Oscar coming too, right? But,
He has good odds at this point.
you throw enough rods in the ocean, you're going to catch a fish eventually, right? Like he's going to, it's going to happen.
And then the other big release, which is my most anticipated film for this weekend, was Halloween Kills, because I was never a big horror fan growing up. I don't like to be scared. And I'm a big baby. So, and the funny thing is, my brother used to watch slasher films so much. He watched all the Halloween movies, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, so many times. And the original Halloween is one of my favorite horror films. And when I saw the new Halloween, and from David Gordon Green and Danny McBride, mind you,
I know, right? Yeah.
And I had a blast with it. I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted this movie to be. And which got me really excited that like we're getting Halloween Kills, and like, not gonna lie, the ending feels really cheap at this point. But like, you know, it's Halloween, and you know, Michael Myers is never gonna die, I guess. Or maybe in Halloween Ends.
He must be as old as Clint Eastwood by now, wouldn't he?
Just never gonna die. He has no time to die. He's just gonna keep going.
Is it funny? Is the Halloween that Danny and David did, is it funny in any way, or is it just kind of
I feel like there's one scene in it where you could definitely feel Danny McBride wrote that scene.
Okay.
And there's one scene with one of the teenage girls babysitting this young black kid, and this kid is sassy as hell. And I'm like, I know whose dialogue Danny McBride wrote. So this kid, and that scene has some pretty good humor in it, but like you could just tell that it was two horror movie fans wrote this. Like I'm not gonna say it's fan fiction, but basically like you have two fans who are like, here's keys to this franchise, do it, and they did it. I'm a little disappointed by all the reviews coming up, and like a lot of them are saying this feels like a completely useless movie. Like
IMDb has it at 7.2. I mean, that's not nothing.
Well, yeah. I guess I feel like this is going to be one of those films where it's like a lot of the critics are not liking this a whole lot.
Yeah.
But if you're
like that,
this is one of my big issues, because I've seen this joke popping up a lot, is a lot of the reviews out of the festivals that this came out at were like, hey, there's too much killing, it's too violent. And I'm sitting there like,
what's the point?
This movie's called, and I've seen this joke on Twitter multiple times, like, you go see a movie called Halloween Kills, and you're mad that they killed too many people. And like I watched, like I haven't been super wowed by the trailers, but I can tell from the trailers that like this doesn't feel like him lurking around and creeping a whole lot and like occasionally killing somebody. This looks like he's just on a rampage. And I feel like that's exactly what this movie's gonna be. So I'm fully prepared to watch people just get murked, like in so many different ways. Like I'm pretty sure he kills like 10 firefighters in the first scene of the movie, it looks like, with a whole variety of different things. So
such a strange concept to me, as in that people love this stuff. It's a strange concept to me. Because I've never, I do love Scream, but I've never watched these old slashers. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, generally, like slashers aren't like my favorite horror movies. Like if I even just think of my favorite horror films, use like The Shining, The Thing. It's a lot more like atmospheric kind of thing, and like building that tension and suspense, and less of like, ooh, who's gonna get murdered next? But like, you know, Blumhouse is basically living off of like, people love 80s slasher movies, and Blumhouse knows it. Keep making them in the 2000s.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I've actually been watching Netflix have released the new season of the movies that made us. The first four movies about Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street, and something else. But they're great. They're so fascinating to watch, and it's still one of those things that cement in your head. Like, how does any movie ever get made? It just makes no sense that anything's put out, and it's a miracle that they come out and do what they do. Great series to watch. Makes me want to go and watch these things.
I have so much fun with that. Because I remember when the first season came out, I got so excited. I'm like, this is my kind of thing. I love watching those kinds of things. And then they had the holiday version one with a couple of movies. And then the second season came out over the summer. And, like Jurassic Park was one of them, which that was so cool.
Yeah, it was. It was.
And, and Halloween was made for $5. And somehow got made.
Yeah, but 350,000, I think, and it made like nearly 100 million.
And it struck a chord. And you know
what?
An
investment. Who wouldn't want to invest in that?
Well, that's why we keep getting Paranormal Activities movies. So
yeah.
And so there were coming attractions. So it's time to jump into our feature, which is Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which is from Martin Scorsese. And this isn't a crime thriller. It's not a gangster movie. You don't have like Robert De Niro, Harvey Keitel, or Leo in it as the lead. We do get a little Keitel in it. But so Adam, what were some of your general thoughts on this film? And was this your first time watching this?
Yeah, it was definitely my first time watching it. It was a title that I was aware of. I didn't even realize it was directed by Martin Scorsese. And it's probably something I'd heard reference to growing up in the 80s from my parents, I think. But I knew nothing about it, apart from Chris Christopherson was in it. And that was about it. My general thoughts, I really liked it. I think it's a must-see movie. Like I've given it a 4 out of 5 on my Letterboxd. There's so much good in there, and a lot of early signs of Scorsese coming through, especially. Are we spoiling these things? Are we spoiling?
Yes. Generally, we just go for it on here. And
it's from 1973, right? It's older than me, this movie, so let's spoil it.
There you
go. So you see that little touch of gore where her husband is in the truck crash. Like, it's just a snip, it's just a little, but it cuts away pretty quick. But then that opening scene with the red filter box and that little girl singing and swearing, I was like, what am I in for here? And then and just the way she talks, I'm like, oh, this is going to be cool. I thought this is going to be cool. And then it switches and it's full screen again. And I was just like, cool. I'm in for the ride. I didn't know what was going on. Such an interesting way to open a movie. Such an interesting way.
Because it definitely played with, at the time, and that was the 70s. The 70s played with everybody's expectations of society, film. And right off the bat, it's like that old school, like Leave It to Beaver, like kind of like just friendly family kind of thing. And I'm like, is the whole film going to be shot like this? Because this is going to be really interesting.
I paused it and rewound. I thought there was something wrong with my TV. I was like, what's going on here?
And it's one of those openings. Go ahead.
It opens up and you see you following on this girl walking alongside this farm picket fence, and you think, it's like the Wizard, it's like the anti-Wizard of Oz, all right?
Right. And you're just like,
kiss my ass.
That girl just starts talking and like, oh, okay, I feel the Scorsese here, because that was my biggest thing. And like, when I was going through all of his filmography, making my list of films that I was going to cover, and I'm like, this seems odd, because like this doesn't, like, Ellen Bernstein and Chris Christopherson in a romance, and then you watch it and you're like, oh, this is definitely a Scorsese movie. But like, because you have that opening scene, and like right off the bat, that very tumultuous relationship she has with her husband, and boy, was that shocking when they show him like brutally dead in his truck, and it's just like, dang. I'm like, well, there's a Scorsese all over this.
Yep, that's the early Scorsese. Yeah.
And the whole entire relationship between this mother Alice and her son Tommy
it's awesome.
that kid definitely would have gotten on my nerves. If I was driving across country
Oh
with
yeah,
that kid, I would
yeah,
have been like,
yeah.
and she just goes right back at him like, dang, this was
This
a
is
different time.
before the ADHD labels came into play, right? Like it's, I mean, he's a little shit because she's a
Yeah.
bit of a little shit to him. Like their relationship is so playful. Like it's more, it's not really a mother and son relationship. It's kind of like a sister and little brother relationship. And
Yeah.
I kind of like that. It's kind of, it would have been very progressive for a 1973 movie for that to be on screen.
Mhm.
Because I liked it more for that.
Well, yeah, and having like a parent talk to a kid back like that, I'm just like,
She's, yeah,
how did families feel about this? And then the next film that they're like, oh, I really liked Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. Let's see that next Scorsese movie. What's this called? Taxi Driver?
yeah, yeah,
Which that's his
yeah.
next film after this. So it's like such an interesting variety of like early Scorsese films here. But like you have such talent in this film because like obviously you have
Yeah.
Ellen Bernstein who's like kills it in Requiem for a Dream.
She won the
And
Oscar though.
yep.
Ellen Burstyn, she won the Best Actress Oscar for this, which I thought was probably appropriate. Not that I know
Mhm.
who else was nominated, but yeah, sorry to interrupt there.
No, it's okay. And because like it's so interesting because this time period was such a big time for actors. And I feel like most of the
Yeah,
perspectives going on, your Brando, your Pacino, your De Niro, your Jack Nicholson, and Gene Hackman. And this film comes out as just like the strong, vulnerable, and complex female lead here in this film. And her going through like this interesting, unique relationship she has with her son, and then these different relationships. It's so weird. Like as like a 30 I'm turning 30 next month actually. It's like being almost 30 years old in like 2021 watching this movie and seeing like Harvey Keitel as the young stud that she shacks up with is such an
yeah,
interesting thing.
yeah.
And
And
it,
doesn't he look young?
yeah, and because like last week was my Mean Streets. 2 weeks ago, I guess, was Mean Streets, and him being the lead in that, and then him coming back and being in this film, and for a lot of his screen time in it, you're just like, this is a different kind of role for him. And then you see his
Mm.
true colors, and then you're just like, oh my God, this movie. And that whole entire sequence with the his wife showing up and that violence and aggression that Harvey Keitel shows him like, well, there's the Keitel. That's Bad Lieutenant right there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and that was hard to watch.
It was actually, that was hard to, and that's just kind of a sign of the times though too, wasn't it? Like that's how men were supposed to be, and that's, women put up with that. It's confronting. It's definitely confronting to see that happen. And yeah, and Alice was just out of there, like, and which is a very smart decision, right? Because imagine if she hung around, how the movie would have gone. Because
Yeah.
obviously he would have come back and pestered her. So um, yeah, that movie could have gone a lot of different directions from there.
Well, and it's so interesting because like he just expected her after witnessing all of that
Mm,
to just be
mm,
like, you're gonna meet me for a date later. It's just like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
goodbye.
It's funny,
and
right?
and it's such an interesting, and like this film doesn't pull punches. No, most
Yeah,
Scorsese films do not. And I feel like that's one of the biggest trademarks about Scorsese that shows through here is like it is a different kind of film for him, but like you still have that like this is not going to pull away from like the dark seedy things
mm,
that people
mm,
do. And
yeah,
and you imagine a woman traveling across country with her son is going to run into at least one or two scumbags along the way. And obviously here's a big one. And
mm,
Keitel plays that off great. And like the whole entire time, Ellen Bernstein's just balancing this sassiness, this charm. She has
yeah.
strong moments, there's vulnerability. And I'm not surprised that she won an Oscar for this because like there's
No.
layers to what she's doing in this film.
She's very, very good. Absolutely. Yeah, she is very good.
And interesting enough, it's like you go later into the film and you find this other love interest, and it's like Chris Christopherson. And which it's interesting because like how I knew who Chris Christopherson was originally was watching Blade and knowing him as Whistler. Because
yeah, I forgot about Blade. It's been a long time since I've seen Blade, but yeah, you're right. Yeah,
because like I didn't listen to country music as a kid. My dad does. My dad's a huge country music fan. Hates Chris Christopherson though.
Oh, okay. Wow.
He's like horrible voice, like, which
he sounded all right in the movie.
A little bit, and like and that's the thing. He has like a more raspier kind of twang about his voice, and like I know, like I feel like the only music that I've listened to of his is like he originally wrote "Me and Bobby McGee," that like Janis Joplin turned into a hit, and like I've heard his version of it, and then I'm a fan of the Highwaymen with him and Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings. And
not really.
But like obviously Chris Christopherson was big in the 70s as a musical artist, but also as a songwriter, and he had A Star Is Born at least a couple years after this, I think.
Yeah.
So he was Bradley Cooper type before Bradley Cooper.
He did it in 76. I'm just on his IMDb now. He has 119 acting credits.
Yeah. And
it's impressive.
I thought he played a very interesting character in this film, and like even him, he's a different version of how men would be at that time. And because like with his situation is more like he makes that comment, he held the door for his wife when she went out the door, and like Alice winds up throwing that back in his face later on because like he has that blow up with Tommy, which that kid though,
he deserved the belt. He did deserve the belt
at that point. And just like obviously, and like there's that complexity, and this film doesn't shy away from that. It's just like who's doing the right thing in that situation, because like he's not his kid, and she confronts him about that, and obviously he wasn't exactly the best father at that point or husband to the family that he had before, but like you're still rooting for him to do the right thing and make this work with Alice, because like
absolutely,
like he seems like he's a genuine kind of guy who wants to do better than he was before.
Yeah, you can see he's a decent bloke. Like he took he offered to take him fishing, right? And that's when the truck broke down. But is he doing that just to get into the mum's pants? I mean, is that the point of why he's doing that? To be nice to the boy you're giving, I mean, there's a lot to weigh up in the way the character is developed, I think. Because again, when it comes to his birthday party and Tommy throws that plate in his face, so of course you're going to build the little kid, especially in the 70s. He's lucky that's all he got, honestly.
It was a different time.
But then you can. And it's very real. It's very real reactions and responses from him, from Tommy, from the mum, from Alice. I'll say it's all very realistic the way that played out.
Well, and this is a very like raw and visceral kind of film too, because like if anything, Scorsese's always that. Like you're not getting anything that isn't like these actors are laying it all out on the set there. And this film is interesting because like even if you're thinking about like where this is set at that time, like this is the Southwest. Like this is even more like this is out there, like Americana kind of thing. And them trying to make that, and like those are like this is how a lot of people acted. And I think it's impressive that this film went there to show Alice confronting some of those things in this film. Like she didn't like, obviously I feel very bad for that wife of Harvey Keitel because
that's a different movie.
Yes, and don't know
That's
if
a
I want to imagine what happened to her
yeah.
after
The
he
poor
took
thing.
her away. And like Alice did what was right by her and got the hell out of there with her
Mm,
son, because like that's her
yeah.
responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that
Well,
interesting
she's good.
dynamic of like Alice trying to balance like what she wants, what's best for Tommy, and even specifically what she thinks Tommy wants, because
Yeah.
that's a different perspective on what he actually wants, and that's where some of the
Yeah.
tension and conflict is in the film.
Yep. Yeah. Good point. Like she just wants to get to Monterey and relive her, try and find, try and capture the happiness she knew
Mhm.
from a child, and all he wants is to build his happiness where he is,
Yep.
have friends, go to school, and have some routine and be settled. Yeah, that was it is a very interesting concept. It's so well. It's making me like the movie more. As we're talking about it, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. And because the thing is, it's like you have that conflict at the end because it's all about expectations. Because like Tommy didn't want to go
Mm.
there. This was
No.
Alice's idea, but she promised him that. And she kept
Yes. Yeah.
reinforcing it. And that's what he was latching on. It's like, you keep telling me we're going to do this thing, but you're not. And then
Mm.
she's taking that as that's what he wants.
Yeah.
But I think he just wants to know what's happening. And
Yeah.
because she winds up getting, like, she gets that job at the diner and she starts seeing
Mm.
Chris Christopherson's character, and they just find their way into this like purgatory here where it's just like they're not progressing, but like they're not really like putting in their roots quite yet. And
Mm.
there's just like that middle ground. And like from a kid's
There's
perspective,
very
like he loses his dad and now he just kind of,
yeah
they're off
yeah.
in the wind kind of
There's a
thing.
point where he asks her, like he said, did you even love Dad? Because you don't seem sad. But like,
Yeah.
there's so much authenticity that runs through this movie, and as you bring up, like he was a kid. Kids just want routine and they want to be settled, and he didn't have that. So obviously that caused conflict. He got, he got mixed in, which we didn't really get didn't really get shown enough or investigated enough, was when he was hanging out with Jodie Foster,
Yeah,
who
right.
I legitimately thought was a boy when first came on screen.
She has very
Um,
short
and
hair.
he's and well, even the voice, the
Yeah.
mannerisms. Anyway, so he starts shoplifting when he steals those guitar strings and stuff. You think there's something that's going to develop there, but you don't get to see much more of that. But
Mhm.
you kind of know where, there's no resolution. He's just he's easily led because he's hasn't got any stability. He's got no discipline either. There's no consequences for his actions, so he just goes off and is easily led to do that type of thing.
Well, yeah, and Jodie Foster's character is a little rebel, isn't she? Like
Yeah,
the way
yeah.
the way she leaves
Like,
the police station at the end of the movie.
yeah, so long, suckers.
Yeah, and which and that's an impact that this young girl just makes on this movie. And I can't imagine like sitting there in the 70s and being like, look at this kid. And then like 2-3 years later,
Yeah.
you get her again in Taxi Driver, and then and we have Jodie Foster. And
Yeah.
which that's always interesting, like seeing. Well, and that's interesting, like what I'm thinking more about, because like you think Keitel got his start really with Scorsese and became a star with his earlier films, and then Mean Streets was that first De Niro film, and then Taxi Driver was like his big lead performance, and then of course Leo became his new muse and stuff like that. But like there's some other actors, and like Jodie Foster's, I guess, some very early roles came in Scorsese films and gave her that opportunity.
He started a lot of careers, or kickstarted a lot of careers, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And it all comes down to the material. Pardon me, but picking the right actor at the right time, and obviously, the director is the one that has to provide the motivations to these guys, and this is what it's supposed to be like. This is what the character does, or this is why they're acting this way. So, a lot of the credit should be given to Scorsese for these guys, for their careers, like De Niro and, as you said, Keitel. Leo as well. I mean, Leo was already a very good actor beforehand, but you know, Scorsese only elevated him.
Well, and he, like, because his first film with Scorsese was Gangs in New York, right?
But did The Aviator come before that?
Because Gangs in New York was what, 2002, 2003, and I think The Aviator was 2004. Because, like, not gonna lie, Leo feels a little green in Gangs in New York, and Cameron Diaz certainly did. I'm gonna have a lot of thoughts when I get around to that movie.
Yeah, we're doing that in March, aren't we? That one, Gangs in New York. I think
because we're
I only watched that I watched that again very recently because I remember really liking it. But then when I watched it very recently, it's definitely gone down in my ratings for sure.
Yeah, February. We'll be talking about that last week of February. It's so crazy. Okay. I'm going to be talking Scorsese until June. But like, it's interesting because it's like, it's at this point, I guess I don't know, I guess the perspective of like where Chris Christopherson was really in his career at this point. Like, I don't know if this was like early on in his acting credits and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like he's fourth. I'm just scrolling.
Which, like, that's an interesting casting decision.
It was his fifth feature.
Yeah, because I guess Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid might have been like one of his first big ones. But like,
yeah, he did Billy the Kid, the last movie. But again, they're all around 1973, 74. But
yeah,
who knows what order they were made in and then released as well, you know? So I guess officially it's his fifth movie, but you know, it could have been the second one he ever filmed. So
yeah, and it's interesting because it's like this has such a strong cast, and you know, when you have a drama like this, because like Scorsese doesn't do a whole lot of just dramas. There's a lot of the times there's the crime elements to it, thriller elements, different kinds of stuff like that, and he gets these actors to really leave it out there. You grow this strong connection with them. There's this very visceral, emotional moments throughout this film, and like from the moment where like she gets up there and performs for the first time at that piano, it's a really like you could see like Bernstein doing such a great job of showing what she can do, but also showing that nervousness and vulnerability there. And there's just a lot going on in this film, in these performances. And that's what you come in here for, this film, is those performances and get drawn in for
it. Yeah, absolutely.
But I guess, Adam, do you have any other big points or thoughts that you wanted to talk about for Alice?
There's a lot of humor in here, like which is kind of typical of Scorsese in a way, like just shock humor. What have I forgotten in my notes here? Well, look, there's one of the funniest line I actually noted this down is when they have the yard sale and they leave the home. Like the mum, she says to Tommy, "Don't look back or you'll turn into a pile of shit." And it's just, I don't know why that's so funny, but it's hilarious to me. I don't know why. It just cracked me up because you got Elton John playing underneath, and it's just hilarious. I
just feel like there's just so much subversion of like what you expect from a mother-son relationship, and just between the shock value and just the committedness of these actors just going all in on these lines, and it's just like I laughed quite a few times unexpectedly in this film, and it has those moments. So.
There was another one that I want to mention is that when she's in one of the bars looking for a job and a guy takes her over to another bar and he's turn around. He's like, "What for?" She goes, "I want to see you." "I don't sing out of my ass." So she just walks off. Piss off. And it's so funny.
I love that moment because and the thing that brought right to my mind and my fiance's too is because like we saw Bombshell together a couple years ago, and that just Oh, watching
Mm,
John Lithgow as Roger Ailes just being
mm,
like,
yep,
turn.
yep.
And it's just like
That's gross, right?
gross.
Yeah,
And it just like
yeah.
feels so dirty. And the way that she just comes back at that guy, I'm just
Yeah.
like, good
Dancing
for
out of my
her.
ass. But it shows that she's uncompromising, right? She's not going to do whatever it takes. She's sticking to her beliefs and to her character.
Yeah.
It's great. It's funny, but it's a great telling line. Like,
Mhm.
that's good.
Yeah, that
It's a
one
good
got
way to show
me.
how.
That one definitely got me too.
Yeah, it's good. And probably should mention Diane Ladd too, right? As Flo,
Yep.
she's really good. She's really good. Yeah, another character like something talks about. What's he talk about? Because obviously they get groped a lot in this cafe, and
Yes.
just her relationships when she's first there talks about the size of her tits or something, and
Yeah.
Alice gets really
Oh, when
offended
she
by
tells her, it's like, don't do that too much, or I'm not going to get any tips ever again.
it. Yeah. That's funny when they're kind of becoming friends, right?
Yep.
But it's, when she's first in the cafe and she's serving someone, and I don't know, she does some speech in front of the entire cafe because it's a very busy place. And
Yeah.
yeah, anyway,
And her
yeah,
back and
very
forth
funny.
with, because like that's her husband, right? Who like runs the diner, or like
Oh, is
there's,
it? I did not pick up on that.
I don't know. They seem to have like a very long relationship here, and they have a
Yeah,
very
yeah,
like knowing banter back and forth with each other,
yeah.
and they bicker like a old like a married couple. I just kind of got that vibe from them, but like
Mm,
they're back and forth the whole entire time at the diner, and like there's a lot of great moments at the diner. Obviously, the big, forgive me, and like let's do
mm,
this kind of moments in the middle of the diner in front of a whole bunch of people.
yeah.
Very movie like at the
Very,
end.
very movie like that. That third act was quite good because there's the scene where she's broken down in the toilet, and the one girl that's left in the cafe is having a meltdown because of all these people, which is funny, right? She's getting plates, she's loaded up, and there's just one guy behind from the counter, just leans over to hand her a plate. She's already crying, but then she sees it coming and she breaks down even more, which you don't even think is possible. That's
Yep.
just funny. Yeah, that's funny. I kind of wanted to get your opinion on the actual ending, because they have that big, that what is now a cliche Hollywood ending in public, where he's like, I don't give a damn about the ranch, I'll take you to
Yep.
Monterey. But the very scene after that is decided they're not going to Monterey because that, so is that a through line in the movie that the man kind of always gets what they want, or is it more the theme of the movie is that you don't have to hunt for happiness. Happiness is where you can find happiness wherever you are.
I feel like the film is kind of having its cake and eating it too, kind of thing. Because like
Yep.
him being like, I could put this like forget this ranch, I'm gonna come with you, shows
Mm.
that he's grown.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
the conversation with Tommy shows that she's grown and is now listening
Mm.
to her son and really what he wants.
Mm.
And
Mm.
and I do think it's like the important thing is because like I'm going to be an odd connection here, but this is what just popped in my head is like Mad Max Fury Road. They just keep talking about the green place. And you know what?
Yeah.
The green place isn't exactly what you always are going to think that it's going to be. And you need to fight to find where you're going to live and thrive. And I
Mm.
think Tommy and Alice put in so much in this place. And like they found a place for themselves.
Yeah.
They just didn't
Yeah.
fully realize it yet.
The
And
grass isn't always greener. Maybe.
exactly. And
Mm.
sometimes the green place literally isn't green. And then you
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
realize
It's a
and
desert. It's a Phoenix desert. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that ending really shows that like everybody's come to the point where like they realize that you need to take a step back in life and realize what's in front of you and what's
Mm.
really giving you happiness and not the thing that you keep chasing after that you think's going to make you happy. Because like
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes that's not worth it, or it's not what you think it is, or it
Yep.
doesn't exist. And Tommy had this seemingly like a great friendship. Obviously, they've gotten in some trouble together.
Yeah.
But like he has this, and she seems to really enjoy the diner and the women that she works with, and like obviously she found Chris Christopherson, and he's at the point now where he'll be wherever she needs him to be. And I think they just found where they need to be. And
Yeah.
I think it was a really fitting ending to this. And it's interesting because it's like, it's a road trip movie and they never get to the destination, or at least the destination that they thought they were trying to find.
Yes. And that's the thing. They probably did find their destination, but not a physical location. Destination's on a physical location. Yeah. I like, Again, talking about this it's only making the movie better, in my opinion, actually. I might have to give it an extra half a star.
This was one of those moments where I'm just like, I took my phone out, pulled up my Amazon app. I'm like, wish list, like to add to my collection.
Yeah.
Because like, this is, I guess, the fourth Scorsese film that I've watched so far that I hadn't seen. Because I didn't see Look Who's Knocking at My Door, which I really enjoyed that too. Like, that's his first feature film. It's a very personal kind of like Italian-American story, and Harvey Keitel's lead in it. And then Boxcar Bertha was an interesting ride.
Right. Not seen it.
And then I watched his documentary Italian-American, which is just Tim interviewing his parents for 50 minutes. And I connected with that on such a deep personal level, because like I grew up I grew up and lived with my grandparents for 19 years of my life. And like there was a lot of things they talked about. I'm like, oh my God, this is my grandparents. And it's just like I really felt that connection. And like now I'm getting into, the farther I go into this watching all these films, was like I've seen most of these kind of things. So like this was nice because like I haven't seen New York yet, so that's going to be another new one that I haven't gotten a chance to see. And then some of his documentaries and stuff like that I haven't seen, but like in general, I've seen a lot of his films after this.
Have you seen Kundun, the one he does about the Dalai Lama?
No, and that one I'm very interested to check out because I've seen The Last Temptation of Christ. I love Silence, and I'm interested to see, because like they seem like such weird offshoots of his career until I watched his first couple films.
Yeah.
And they're not like those three, Kundun, Last Temptation of Christ, and Silence, are very outwardly religious because they're about religious figures and stuff like that. But his earlier films are just steeped in Catholic guilt and just like this Roman Catholic like upbringing stuff. I'm like, my God, I know how this feels. And because like being an Italian American who grew up confirmed Roman Catholic and everything, I'm just like, this hits in a place. I really get this. And you could tell they were very personal and connecting. And it makes me think about, because like Martin Scorsese doesn't really write his films, right?
No.
In general. No. So like he's he obviously he looks and finds the right story. And like you have like people like Paul Schrader who writes his films like Taxi Driver. And but like I wonder what brought him to this film.
Let's talk about the card counter. No, I'm just joking.
Card counter was an interesting experience.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan. I'm looking. He's got 17 writing credits. He wrote Silence. That
I'm not surprised about. Like you could tell that felt very personal.
He wrote Mean Streets, Goodfellas, Age of Innocence, Casino. Oh, so he does write. Okay. I'm sure he's not the sole writer though.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking too. Because like director, we were talking about said director earlier, Clint Eastwood. Like Clint Eastwood doesn't write screenplays. but
No.
he does take people's screenplays and cleanse them up. Because
Build them up. Yeah.
because I remember distinctly hearing about, I listened to the Cinephiles, favorite podcast. Love that podcast a lot with Steve Morris and John Roca, and they were doing $1 Million Baby, which is a film that I absolutely love. And apparently Clint Eastwood got the script from like Paul Haggis, did his Clint Eastwood treatment. Like he goes through the script and does some changes, and he went back through and just threw out all the changes that he made because he realized that he couldn't make it better. He's just like,
oh,
nope.
really?
I'm like, no, this script's good. I'm not going to change anything. But like, I imagine even if Scorsese doesn't write on them, he writes on them. And, you know,
yeah,
when a director's directing,
they're writing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's interesting because like there's and this could go into a whole deeper conversation, but the one thing I'm going to bring up is like I love the Coen brothers and spent the first 20 episodes of this show going over their films. Apparently they hammer it out all in the writing process, and when they're on set, they're doing what they do.
That's it.
Yep.
There's no rewrites, no. I actually just got to watch, I remember last time we spoke, I hadn't watched Inside Llewyn Davis, and I had a bit of after the card counter, I watched Inside Llewyn Davis, Oscar Isaac Fest, and yeah, I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
Not their best, but I'm glad I watched it, for sure.
I'm anxiously awaiting the Tragedy of Macbeth.
Yeah.
With one Coen.
I was going to say, yeah, I've had some good buzz about it.
Yeah, I meant to message Foster. I'm like, where the hell did you see this already? Because like there's a review out on SiftPop on. I'm like,
yeah,
did
Film
you see
festival,
this?
Right? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Foster lives in New York. I'm like, they had to have a screening somewhere.
So yeah, I think he said it's at the New York Film Festival. He saw it, right?
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because he saw that and the new Benedict Cumberbatch and Jane Champion film.
Oh, yeah.
The dog something or other.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up now.
Anyway, but yeah, so I'm really glad that I checked this film out. And this is the fun thing about I had seen all the Coen brothers films before I did this show. So like I had seen them all times. I saw a couple of Kubrick films I had never seen before, and now I'm seeing some Scorsese's that I've never seen before. And this definitely one out of all the films that are new watches for me on this show so far. I felt like this was the one that I'm like, dang, I'm really happy that I got to check this one out. So you all out there
me too.
should go check out this film, and it's on HBO Max here, which is where I found it. So they have a decent amount of Scorsese movies on there, so they're gonna be helping me out.
Yeah, we don't get HBO Max here, sadly. We get some stuff, but it's on a streaming service that I don't like, so because their quality is bad, so I'm not paying money for that.
Definitely have a whole lot of conversations about streaming services. Be a whole other conversation, but I guess this is a great conversation about Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, so you all should go check it out. It's a really great film and definitely worth your time. Next week, I'm going to be talking about Taxi Driver with my friend Matt, which I'll see how I feel after I go through all these films. That like going into this is my favorite Scorsese film, and I'm very interested in rewatching it again this week. But the last segment on the show is recommendations. So Adam, what are some recommendations you want to make to all of the lovely people watching this right now?
Film or TV?
I know you gave me two movies. If you want to throw in any TV there too, just throw it out there.
I won't change up things too much. I'll mention the main one I do want to bring up was had a really good recommendation. One of my friends has seen a lot of old movies, and I asked him what are some old classics to recommend, and he told me Bringing Up Baby. And so one morning I went through a list of old classics, and this was the shortest one because I didn't have a lot of time, and it was the shortest out of all of them. And I was Bringing Up Baby, and I'll try and cut a long story short. I nearly passed out twice from laughing so hard at this movie. It is ridiculously funny. It's from 1938, and I do not understand how. Afterwards watching, I don't understand how a lot of the humor in it, although I know I've seen it in other movies, it's just not done as well as it is here. It's Cary Grant and
Is it Katharine Hepburn? Yeah.
Yeah, and I've never seen, I don't think I've ever seen Katharine Hepburn in anything. I might have seen in something, but I don't remember her from anything, if that makes sense. And Cary Grant, a very young Cary Grant, who he's not great acting wise, to be honest. I mean, he's okay. He just plays this bumbling, dinosaur nerd, like maybe like Ross bloody Ross Geller.
if Friends was made in the 30s, it would have had Cary Grant in it.
Well, if it was made in the 30s, it would have been funny.
I think I know how Adam feels about Friends.
Well, it hasn't aged very well. It's no Seinfeld, that's for sure. It doesn't hold up.
I'm definitely a fan of Seinfeld. So
yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, Seinfeld's the best. But Katharine Hepburn is awesome in this, and there's just so many situations. Baby, by the way, is not a baby. It's a leopard that's been sent to them. And it's a tame leopard. But just so many things pop up. There's so many complexities not complexities, but so many things that happen in the plot that just you don't see in modern movies. You just don't see it because I guess for today's modern audiences, they probably wouldn't be able to follow. I don't know. That might be a little bit disparaging to modern audiences, but it's just so much fun. There's so many stupid throwaway lines, and just subtle comedy but not also subtle. There's slapstick, there's intelligent humor, there's everything going for it. I can't speak highly of it enough. It was spectacular. Again, I ran out of breath twice. I had to pause it. and stop my head spinning. It was fantastic. Loved it.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then did you want to talk about the other movie that you brought up?
I can do that. Last night I actually watched It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, which is great for a lot of reasons. It's just I'd never seen that, and I'd seen things like this. I loved it for quite a few reasons. One silly reason is that it made me understand a lot more Simpsons references that I hadn't understood before, because I was watching it thinking, it's from The Simpsons. And I know there's a whole episode in The Simpsons that takes this off, but these other little Simpsons bits that you just go, there you go, that's where that's from. But again, it's just stupid humor. What really impressed me the most about it are the stunts, the practical driving and aeroplane stunts that they do. I didn't look into the history of this movie, but if someone didn't get killed making this movie, I'd be surprised, because the way they drive, and these old cars that they, from 1960s, early 60s cars, this body roll on these cars that they're like sailing ships, but the way they're driven and the stuff they do in these cars is so impressive to watch. And again, I don't watch Fast and the Furious movies because that's, I'm not into that. But this is practical. This is no digital involved. So go and watch. If you like Fast and the Furious, honestly, I would recommend this just to watch the way real car stunts are done. Practically, it's great. There's some very funny moments in it. It's got an amazing comedic cast. Some proper comedy legends, Sid Caesar and Jonathan Winters, and God, who else is in it? There's so many.
Stooges are in it, right?
For literally 1.5 seconds.
Yeah. There's just so many people in this movie. It's just ridiculous.
It is. Yeah, it's great. And it's basically they're all just trying to get to a big pile of money that's been buried by someone. So.
Spencer Tracy, Milton Berle, Sid Caesar, Buddy Hackett, Ethel Merman, Mickey Rooney, Dick Shawn, Phil Silvers, Terry Thomas, Jonathan Winters, Edie Adams. Looking at some other people, like I recognize so many of these faces, which is interesting. Yeah. Like a lot of them are in a lot of like small roles in like Mel Brooks movies and stuff like that. Peter
Yeah.
Falk.
Yes. Yeah, he plays a cab driver.
Yep. Buster Keaton, of course, pops up in
Yeah.
it. Don
The-
Knotts,
yeah, Don Knotts is in it for a hot
Carl
minute.
Reiner, just
Yes.
Three Stooges. There you go. There's just so many people, and there's a whole bunch of people that aren't even credited because they just pop up for like 2 seconds.
Yeah, there's a lot of well, I guess for '60s cameos. Yeah, that's full of them. It's just such a fun movie. The one thing that really let it down for me though is the ending set piece is quite ludicrous. They all got through this abandoned building because they're chasing Spencer Tracy, who's taken off with the money. But to get down, they're on this fire engine ladder. But this ladder's just swaying back. It's just lets it all down just a little bit. That set piece at the end because it's just so far fetched. It's ridiculous. But otherwise, yeah, another classic. I've been delving into a lot of pre-70s movies lately, and I'm
Awesome.
very, very glad I am. Yeah.
Well, those are definitely a couple to have some laughs with. My recommendations aren't quite that kind of speed, but one thing I did want to bring up is like when you're able to see No Time to Die, show this movie some love.
Next month.
Yep. And everyone out there that at least in America here that let this underperform at the box office, what's wrong with you? But well, that's it. And things are still complicated, very complicated here. And it's just like, this is a 2 hour and 45-minute film. And like, it's a commitment. I showed up, I sat in my seat at 11:50 and left the theater at 3:10. And I'm just like, AMC and your 30 minutes of BS before the movies too.
Yeah.
But it made me emotional. It's bold. And I think it's a really great send-off for Daniel Craig. So I'm very happy that I finally got to see it after how many damn years this keeps kept getting pushed back. And the one that I did want to throw a little shout out to, this is coming to Shudder, which I wind up getting a lot of Shudder stuff in terms of like screeners and stuff like that, is The Spine of Night. And so if you've ever seen heavy metal or any of those like very violent, like sci-fi, fantasy, like mature animated movies, this is right up your alley. And this is like hardcore fantasy with a lot of blood and guts and unexpected. Like the voice cast has Richard E. Grant in it, Lucy Lawless, Patton Oswalt is just like this shit of a prince and plays it so well too.
Wow.
And
yeah, Patton's coming along. He's doing all right, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Joe Manganiello, who just like gritty voices his way through the whole entire movie, doing his thing. It's just like you don't see a whole lot of fantasy like this because like fantasy is really hard to make work, to be honest.
Yeah.
And this is just a crazy, ridiculous time. And I'm like, did all this make sense? No. But did I have a blast watching this? Yes. I'm like, so if you have Shudder, I'm not sure because like, do you have Shudder in Australia?
Shudder is in Australia, yeah, but I don't have it because I'm not a horror person.
Yep.
So I haven't bothered.
Actually, I'm thinking like, why is this Shudder? I guess there's some like creepy moments because like there's some like at one point one character does get like a magic fireball thrown on his face, and then later he has no skin on his face, and it's just like this bloody pulpy mess, and it's just like, oh my god. And it's that kind of animated movie. Like they definitely use it for like all the blood and guts that you probably wouldn't be able to get away with in live action. So, and like the vocal cast is fun. They're just like Richard E. Grant's in it for a little while, and he's just like a cool presence in the film. And I love fantasies, so like this was just a interesting, fun ride for me. So get a chance, anybody out there that sounds interesting to you, check out The Spine of Night. Because I had no idea about it until my friends at Shudder sent me like, interested in screening this? I'm like, sure. So there you go. And that's exactly why, so I could spread the word about it. So all working out for everyone. But anyway, Adam, this was a fun time, and I appreciate you pushing through as you've sat here for like 4 hours in a row recording content.
It's been a long day.
But you know, it's always fun chatting movies with you. And yes, we will be back together again in February talking about Gangs in New York. Trying to double check. Yeah, that's the next one on here. And I've obviously would like to have you back for round 2 on Lost in the Wasteland. I'm working my way back through with some like second round interviews, and you're definitely one that I would like to have back soon. So
cool. We'll
chat.
Sounds good.
But Adam, would you like to shamelessly plug one last time before we wrap up?
Yeah, if you've hung in this long, just probably Letterboxd is the best place to catch me. I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter, and if I do, it might be some Formula One stuff. And I don't tweet too often. So Kerbryder at Letterboxd, KERBRIDER, is where you'll see my thoughts and opinions on what I watch. If you care, you should care because it's good.
Yeah, there we go. So, but Adam, thank you again for joining me this time on Welcome to the Wasteland, and thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.